In this introductory lecture, we are first going to do a quick review of the computer security objectives. We will then look at the X.800 security architecture that comprises of services and mechanisms and the type of attacks they are designed for. We will also talk about the attack surface. Then we will look at the general models for network security within which the security services and mechanisms can be viewed. We will be using one of these models throughout the course. The United States has an organization with the abbreviation NIST, which stands for National Institute for Standards and Technology. They have developed a computer security handbook which defines computer security as the protection afforded to an automated information system in order to attain the applicable objectives of preserving the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information system resources, which can be hardware, software, firmware, information or data, and telecommunications. The NIST Computer Security Handbook is available online. So this definition introduces three key security objectives for both data and for information and computing services. They are often referred to as the CIA triad, which stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Although the use of the CIA triad to define security objectives is well established, some in the security field feel that additional concepts are needed to give a complete security picture. Two of the most commonly mentioned are accountability and authenticity. So now let's look at each of these 5 security objectives. First, let's look at confidentiality. This term covers 2 related concepts: data confidentiality and privacy. Data confidentiality assures that private or confidential information is not made available or disclosed to unauthorized individuals. Privacy, on the other hand, assures that individuals control or influence what information related to them may be collected and stored, and by whom and to whom that information may be disclosed. So it is more about individuals' control over their own information. The integrity objective covers 2 related concepts: data integrity and system integrity. Data integrity assures that information and programs are changed only in a specified and authorized manner. System integrity, on the other hand, assures that a system performs its intended function in an unimpaired manner, free from deliberate or inadvertent unauthorized manipulation of the system. Availability assures that systems work promptly and services are not denied to authorized users. Authenticity is the property of being genuine and being able to be verified and trusted. So we should have confidence in validity of a transmission or message originator. So we should be able to verify that users are who they say they are and that each input arriving at the system came from a trusted source. Accountability is the security goal that creates requirements for actions of an entity to be traced uniquely to that entity. This supports non-repudiation, which means that an entity cannot deny having taken an action. Moreover, systems must keep records of their activity to promote later forensic analysis to trace security breaches. Let's look at some examples of security requirements for confidentiality, integrity, and availability, which are the 3 primary computer security objectives. So, first is confidentiality. Student-grade information is an asset whose confidentiality is considered to be highly important by the students. In the United States, the release of such information is regulated by FERPA, which stands for Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So grade information should only be available to students, their parents, and employees that require this information to do their job. On the other hand, student enrollment information may have a moderate confidentiality rating. This information is also covered by FERPA, but it is seen by more people on a daily basis and is less likely to be targeted than grade information and results in less damage if disclosed. Directory information, such as lists of students, has low confidentiality rating since it is freely publicly available to all and is published on the school website. Let's look at some examples of integrity. So, patient's allergy information is an information asset with a high requirement of integrity. So if this information is stored incorrectly or modified incorrectly, it could cause serious harm to the patient or result in their death and expose the hospital to a massive legal liability. An asset that may be assigned a moderate level of integrity requirement is, for example, a discussion forum on a website that offers registered users opportunities to discuss some specific topic. A registered user or hacker could falsify some information or deface the website. The website owner in that case might experience some financial loss, or maybe none, if the website is only used for enjoyment of the users and is not used to generate revenue. An example of low integrity requirement is an anonymous online poll offered by many websites and which have relatively few safeguards or security settings. So the inaccuracies of such polls are well understood. Availability. So the more critical a component or service is, the higher the level of availability required. So consider a system that provides authentication service for a critical system, application, and devices. An interruption of service results in inability of customers to access computing resources and for staff to access resources they need for performing critical tasks. The loss of services translates into large financial loss due to lost employee productivity and potential customer loss. An example of a moderate availability requirement would be a public website for a university. The website provides information about current and prospective students, courses, and faculty. This is not really a critical component of the university's information system, but its unavailability would cause some embarrassment to the university. An online telephone directory lookup application would be classified as a low availability requirement. Although the temporary loss of the application could cause annoyance, there are other ways to access the information, such as using a hard copy of the directory or through a phone operator. So there is less damage. Now, to assess the security needs of an organization and to evaluate and choose various security products and policies, the manager responsible for computer network security needs some systematic ways of defining the requirements for security and characterizing the approaches to satisfy those requirements. Now, this is a relatively difficult task. Therefore, the ITUT, or the International Telecommunication Union Telecommunications Standardization Sector, has developed the international standard known as X.800 or the security architecture for the OSI, which defines such a systematic approach. Now, it is useful for managers as a way of organizing the tasks of providing security. The OSI security architecture focuses on attacks, mechanisms, and services. A security attack is any action that compromises the security of information owned by the organization. A security mechanism is a process or a device that is designed to detect, prevent, or recover from a security attack. A security service is a processing or a communication service that enhances the security of the data processing systems and the information transfers of an organization. The services are intended to counter security attacks, and they make use of one or more security mechanisms to achieve that. One important concept is the difference between, as we're talking about attacks, it is also important to know the difference between threats and attacks because they're often used interchangeably in the literature. The definitions that you see over here on the slide of threat and attack have been taken from the Request for Comments document number 4949. You can look this document up on Google. It's freely available. The RFCs are technical and organizational documents about the internet. Now, a threat is a possible danger that might exploit a vulnerability, whereas an attack is an offensive action that is derived from the threat. So while the threat might always exist, the attack might not always be there. But for an attack to happen, there should be a threat. So for example, if you're using weak passwords, there is a threat for brute force attack to potentially get access to your system. But the actual attack is the brute force attack. So an attack is an assault on system security that derives from an intelligent threat. That is an intelligent act that is a deliberate attempt, especially in the sense of a method or technique, to evade security services and violate the security policy of a system. A useful means for classifying security attacks used in both X.800 standard and the RFC 4949 is in terms of passive and active attacks. A passive attack attempts to learn or make use of information from the system but does not affect system resources. An active attack attempts to alter system resources or affect their operation. Passive attacks, as shown in this figure, are attacks where the goal of the attacker is to obtain information that is being transmitted. Two types of passive attacks are the release of message contents and traffic analysis. The release of message contents could be through eavesdropping on a telephonic conversation, email message, unencrypted file contents. Traffic analysis consists of analyzing encrypted data transmissions to deduce information from patterns in the communication. For example, examining the frequency or the length of the encrypted messages in order to guess the nature of communication taking place. Passive attacks are difficult to detect because they do not involve any alteration of data, but they can be prevented. Active attacks involve some modification of the data stream or the creation of false data stream. They can be subdivided into 4 categories, as shown here: masquerade, replay, modification of message contents, and denial of service. Masquerade takes place when one entity pretends to be another entity. For example, valid authentication sequences can be captured and replayed to impersonate the authenticated entity and obtain extra privileges. Replay involves the passive capture of a data unit and its subsequent transmission to produce an unauthorized effect. Modification of messages means that some portion of a legitimate message is altered, or messages are delayed or reordered to produce an unauthorized effect. The denial of service inhibits or prevents the normal use or management of communication facilities. This attack may have a very specific target, such as a network. Active attacks are quite difficult to prevent due to the wide variety of potential physical, software, and network vulnerabilities. Instead, over here, the goal is to detect them and recover from any disruption caused by them. Now, the X.800 standard defines a security service as the security that is provided by the protocol layer of the communicating open systems. Another definition that is provided by the RFC 2828 states that security service is a processing or communication service provided by a system to give a specific kind of protection to the system resources. The X.800 standard divides these services into several categories shown on this slide: authentication, access control, data confidentiality, data integrity, and non-repudiation. The authentication service is concerned with assurance that the communication is authentic. In the case of a single message, such as a warning or alarm signal, the function of the authentication service is to assure the recipient that the message is from the source it claims to be from. In the case of an ongoing interaction, such as the connection of a terminal to a host, two aspects are involved. First, at the time of connection initiation, the service assures that the two entities are authentic. Second, the service must assure that the connection is not being interfered with in such a way that the third party can masquerade as one of the two legitimate parties for the purposes of unauthorized transmission or reception. Access control is the ability to limit and control the access to host systems and applications via communication links. To achieve this, each entity trying to gain access must first be identified or authenticated so that access rights can be tailored to that individual. Data confidentiality. This is the protection of data from passive attacks. The attacker should also not be able to observe the source and destination, frequency, length, or other characteristics of the traffic. Data integrity. This is the assurance that data received is same as that sent by an authorized entity without any duplication, insertion, modification, reordering, or replay. As with confidentiality, data integrity can apply to a stream of messages, a single messages, or selected fields inside a message. Non-repudiation. This is what prevents a sender or receiver from denying a transmitted message. So the receiver can prove that alleged sender in fact sent the message. This slide shows the 5 X.800 security service categories, which are further divided into 14 specific services. Make sure to pause here and read these through. Security mechanism. The security mechanisms in X.800 standard represents the specific means of implementing one or more security services. They are designed to detect, prevent, or recover from security attack. No single mechanisms achieve all the services that we have discussed, but cryptography is able to achieve many of them, and we will observe that throughout this course. This slide shows the X.800 security mechanisms. Make sure to pause here and read these through. In this course, we will cover a variety of these mechanisms, such as encipherment, digital signature, data integrity, authentication exchange, and padding. Let's look at what an attack surface is. An attack surface consists of the reachable and exploitable vulnerabilities in a system. Examples of attack surfaces include open ports on outward-facing web servers and other servers, and code listening on those ports, services available on the inside of a firewall, code that processes incoming data, email, XML, Office documents, and industry-specific custom data exchange formats, interfaces, e.g. user interfaces, SQL and web forms where user can enter information, as well as an employee with access to sensitive information vulnerable to a social engineering attack. Attack surface can be categorized in the following three ways: network attack surface, software attack surface, and human attack surface. The network attack surface category refers to vulnerabilities over an enterprise network, wide area network, or the internet. Included in this category are network protocol vulnerabilities, such as those used for denial of service attacks. Software attack surface refers to vulnerabilities in application, utility, or operating system code. A particular focus in this category is web server software. Human attack surface category refers to vulnerabilities created by personnel or outsiders, such as social engineering or human error, as well as from trusted insiders. An attack surface analysis is useful for addressing the scale and severity of threats to an information system. A systematic analysis of points of vulnerability makes developers and security analysts aware of where security mechanisms are required. Once an attack surface is defined, designers may be able to make the surface smaller, thus making the task of adversary more difficult. Let's now look at two general models for network security. A model for what we will be discussing in this course is captured in a very general term in this figure. Here, a message is to be transmitted from one party to another across some sort of internet service. The two parties which are the principals in this transaction must cooperate for the exchange to take place. A logical information channel by defining a route through the internet from source to the destination, and by the cooperative use of communication protocols such as TCP/IP is defined. Security aspects come into play when it is necessary or desirable to protect the information transmission from an opponent who may present a threat to confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, or accountability. All of the techniques for providing security have two components. One, a security-related transformation on the information to be sent. Examples include the encryption of the message and addition of a code on the contents of a message, which can be used to verify the identity of the sender. Number two, some secret information shared by the principals. And it is hoped that it is unknown to the opponent. An example is an encryption key used in conjunction with the transformation of the message to scramble it before transmission and to unscramble it upon reception. A trusted third party may be needed to achieve such secure transmission. For example, the third party may be responsible for distributing the secret information to the two principals, or a third party may be needed to arbitrate disputes between the two principals regarding the authenticity of message transmission. So this model shows that there are four basic tasks in designing a particular security service. Number one, designing an algorithm for providing the security-related transformation. Number two, generate the secret information to be used with the algorithm. Number three, develop methods for the distribution and sharing of the secret information. Number four, specifying a protocol to be used by the two principals that make use of the security algorithm and the secret information to achieve a particular security service. Now, there are other security-related situations of interest which do not fit in the network security model that we just discussed. A general model for these other situations is shown in this figure right here, which reflects a concern for protecting the information systems from unwanted access. The opponent can be an unwanted user or an unwanted software. The security mechanisms needed to cope with unwanted access fall into two broad categories. Gatekeeper functions, which include password-based login procedures designed to deny all access except to the authorized users, as well as screening logic that is designed to detect and reject worms, viruses, etc.